What is going on, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Welcome back to another weekly episode of Nerd Explosion. I am your host, Kait, and joined with me today is the ever-lovely...
Oh, I thought you were going to introduce me. I'm Cameron.
That's why I pointed to you.
Oh, I wasn't even looking. I was kind of just looking off. You know, I was in my own little world over here.
Okay, well... I love that journey for you. I was going to say something snippy, and then I decided to be nice. Quick fun fact. It is my birthday today, this day of recording.
It's your birthday today. It's your
Thank you. I love it.
Apparently, I just looked at it. Apparently, there's a bunch of them that are just like that, but they do it with like different names.
Who is that?
I don't know who it is. It's,
just some random thing you found?
The channel is called Epic Happy Birthday, and it's basically that same song, but they do different ones they just do a different name for each one.
I love that so much. Anyway, so welcome back. We are continuing our month of musicals, and I opened this episode because I wanted to start this episode, well, first of all, because it's my birthday and I can do what I want. It's my birthday and I'll cry if I want to.
She's a Leo, can you tell?
I am. Happy Leo season, bitches. I'm gonna be a fucking menace to society until Leo season is over. And probably, you know what? I'm just gonna be a fucking menace to society my entire 30s, I've decided.
Speaking of being a menace to society, since you did this last episode, you know what I get to do now?
Stir your ice.
Yeah, annoying, isn't it?
I don't mind it, but you might piss off our lovely listeners.
That's okay. I'm sure there's a type of asthma out there for that.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh my god, I should start that as a YouTube channel. Anyway.
I would like to talk about my newest obsession. It's a play. It's a musical.
It's a play.
I hiccuped. Sorry. It's a musical. It is. I went to see it. When did I go see it? In June?
Sure.
Yeah, it must have been because I think it was right after I started my new job. I went to the Orpheum and saw it with my dad.
My dad.
I saw Come From Away.
That's what the name of it was. Just I kind of figured that's what you were gonna talk about, but I was like, I could not remember the name of the actual show.
Have you heard, other than me rambling on about it forever and then listening to the Broadway soundtrack, do you know anything about Come From Away?
I know nothing about it.
I'm so excited to tell you.
Other than the very, small bits that you've already told me.
Okay, so Come From Away is a true story. Let's just dive right in because it is, honestly, I don't use this phrase lightly, but watching this musical was fucking life-changing. The sense of camaraderie that you get throughout the whole show is just phenomenal, even though it's based on a really dark subject matter.
And this episode is also going to be about other underrated shows, because I know a lot of these shows that Kate wanted to talk about feel either underrated or just shows that hey, not many people really know or not many people really pay attention to. So yeah, she's got a couple, and then I'll list off a couple, but go ahead with your show.
Okay,
birthday girl.
So Come From Away is a true story based on the actual events that took place September 11th, 2001 and the days that followed.
So it's basically about 9/11.
You would think so, but no.
It's related.
Kind of
related to.
So it's the musical is about the direct effects that the events of 9/11 had on the FFA or the FAA.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read you a brief overview. I'm going to go through this. I'm getting all my information from comefromaway.com.
The actual show website.
Yes. So Tuesday, September 11th, 2001 at 9:26 a.m., the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, makes the decision to shut down its airspace, forcing over 4,000 planes to land at the nearest airport. Inbound flights from Europe are diverted to Canada. Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, at 12 p.m., Gander International Airport is told 18 planes will be flying into the airport. Passengers are not allowed to leave the plane. So, quick backstory. Gander is a town in Newfoundland, Canada. Mm-hmm. Gander is a town of 9,000 people.
So, small.
It's an island. It's
small-ish.
Yeah, so Gander, Newfoundland is an island. Gander is a town of 9,000 people, so they're just being told that 18 planes are going to be grounded, and if you factor in that each of these planes has between 250 and 300 people, they're now doubling their population in the span of like 6 hours. And then on top of that, 13 additional planes land at Gander International Airport.
Oh my god.
So a total of 38 planes have landed in Gander, carrying 6,579 passengers and crew. For a town like Gander with a population of 10,000 people, this was an extraordinary challenge to take on. So the musical opens with the Newfoundlanders getting ready for their day. You know, one of them pops out and they're like, I was at the bank getting ready for this, or I was at the coffee shop getting ready for this, whatever. And then they open and they're kind of telling you like how they're opening their day. And then all of a sudden, one by one, they're starting to see what's happening. And they're like, what the fuck is this? Because it's like, they're in Canada, right? So theoretically, what happened on 9/11 doesn't have any direct effect on them.
Yeah.
And then, so the planes land and the whole town is like scrambling to get ready. They're trying to they turned the school and a couple other places of business into like a makeshift like housing for these people. And the people of Newfoundland even they were like, okay, well, I guess we're going to open up our doors and we're going to let people stay with us and we're going to do this. And this is people from all over the world, right? I mean, these are flights coming from Europe. So these are international flights. And so finally the passengers are allowed to leave the plane. It's been over 5 hours since they've landed, and they have stayed inside the plane on Gander's runway. The come from aways, quote, are driven to Salvation Army centers, churches, schools, and community centers in Gander and neighboring towns.
So the title "Come From Away" refers to everybody who landed in this
yes,
island.
And you learn that in the opening song.
Because they came from away.
You learn that in the opening song of the musical, because they're basically like, if you're not from Newfoundland, you're a come from away, because you're not from here.
You're one of them from aways, ain't you?
No, but watching this musical, I have never wanted to be a Newfoundlander more in my life. I was like...
Newfoundlander?
A Newfoundlander. I was like, I want to be an islander. I want to live there. That place sounds magical.
They prefer to be called Newfies?
Newfies. So then they... Throughout the day, the planes are cleared out, and they're basically saying, take what you have to, but leave most of it, because they simply don't have room. Okay, this is just going through the same information. So now I'll just tell you about the musical, because it's so good. So there's a lot of different people. There's a gay couple. There's a woman who's flying, whose son was flying, and now she can't get a hold of him. There's another woman whose son was a firefighter in New York City. And then there was, so the woman whose son was a firefighter, she spends the entire musical trying to get in touch with him, and she's like, I know he's not missing, they told me he's missing, but he's not, he's helping people, he's doing all this. So then she ends up striking up a friendship with one of the Newfoundlanders, who she's like, I know it's vastly different, but my son's a firefighter too, I totally get it, I understand that fear. And they build this camaraderie together. And then the gay couple that's in it, one of them is just like, I want to go home, I don't want to be here, I just want to see my sister and my mom and my dad and whatever. And the other one is like, I can't live in this fear, I can't live this is, I have to find a way to move on. And so they end up kind of drifting apart throughout the musical, which is really sad to see. But then there's another guy from England who was flying into Dallas, because most of the show focuses on this plane that was coming from Europe to Dallas. And you kind of just watch them all kind of learn to get along, and then they learn to trust each other a little bit. And then there's a really fun bar scene where they become honorary Newfoundlanders. And the one guy from England and the one woman whose son was flying, they end up falling in love, and it's like a really cute story. Because when she was like, oh, well, somebody was flying today and I don't know if he made it or not, he assumed she was talking about her husband. But she was like, I don't know what happened to my kid, or if he even like was on this plane, because he was supposed to be on one of the planes that hit the towers.
Yeah, and that's the main theme for like a lot of what happened during 9/11 is that it was all like fear, and it was a mix between fear and just not knowing what's going on.
And here's why this musical was so fucking powerful. Like, there was at one point, like, I was so immersed in this musical that they're all like talking, and then all of a sudden one of the Newfoundlanders, and I cannot remember her name. I wish I could have found my playbook. But she was like, all these air passengers are like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why are we here? Like, what happened? What is going on? Whatever. And then she turns to them and she was like, and then she turns to the audience, and everything kind of stills, and she goes, I suppose they haven't seen it yet. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So she was like, I'll get you settled in the rec room. The TV's on if you want to watch. So then all of the actors turn to face the audience like they're watching the TV, and they all just give up this gut-wrenching gasp at the same time. And I was like, that's the moment they saw the plane hit the tower. Mm-hmm. Because I remember that gasp. I remember my mom making that sound when she watched it happen. Because I remember hearing my dad say that he called my mom and was like, turn the TV on. And my mom was like, well, Ryan's watching cartoons, like what channel? And he was like, I don't care, just turn the TV on. Like, turn on the news, doesn't matter what channel. And it was horrifying. Like, I remember where I was that day. So to think about it from the perspective of these people who, for all they know, they were on a flight from Paris to Dallas, and now all of a sudden they're stuck in Canada somewhere and they have no idea what's going on, and then they learn what happened, and then they're like frantically trying to call people, and then the people of Newfoundland are like, we're getting out as many phones as we can, we're we've shut down everything, we're just trying to accommodate these people to the best of our abilities. Like, they've almost tripled their town's population in a span of 18 hours. Like, and then there was this one guy from Egypt, and there was obviously some racial tension there because he was on the phone with his sister, he was speaking Egyptian, and they're like, are you celebrating this, and blah blah blah, and he was like, no. And it was just like how they kind of overcame their immediate mistrust of this person. And then at one point, one of the Newfoundlanders later in the musical, because there's this whole thing where they're like, where can I go to pray? Like, I need to be in a church right now or whatever. So there's like, oh, well, if you're Catholic, there's a priest over here. And if you're Jewish, there's a rabbi over here, or, just kind of accommodating people. And then so this one Newfoundland woman who's kind of like in charge of the whole school situation, she walks up and she just gently taps this Egyptian gentleman on the shoulder. And she was like, if you want a quiet place to pray, we set up the library, like, because it faces whatever. And it was just very accommodating. And then it was funny because later in the show, that same guy, he was like, please let me help with the food, like, I need to help. And the woman was like, oh no, please, we couldn't ask you to trouble yourself. And he finally just goes, I'm a 5-star chef at a nationally recognized hotel chain, please let me help. And she goes, why didn't you say so? Get in the kitchen. Like, it's very funny. And she was very quick to be like, oh, you're a chef, okay, well, let's help. But the whole thing, it was just watching these people kind of come together. And the part that got me the most was that the pilot was actually there, and she was talking about how she said she wanted to fly since she was like super little, like 6 or 8 years old. And she was like, I remember looking at my dad and saying, I'm going to be a pilot. And he was like, just wait and see what happens, because she was like, I was too tall, I was too young, and I'm a woman, And then she's singing about her experience and her career and how the older generation, like the World War II pilots, were like, you're a woman, you have no business in the cockpit, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, not only did she surpass their expectations, but then she ended up being the first female pilot on American Airlines.
Yeah.
And then she ended up, not only that, but then she ended up having the first all-female crew, and then she ended up going further beyond that to end up being a pilot trainer. So she actually like is training the new generation of pilots, which I thought was really cool. And I did some fact checking when we got back into the car, and yeah, she really was. She's a fucking badass.
Well, yeah, if we're gonna put that type of thing into play, you definitely want to like do your research,
especially if you're gonna say that it's a play based on, it's a musical based on a true story. But yeah, if you yeah, she's a fucking badass. Her career is phenomenal, and she's talking about how she calls her husband at one point, and she's just kind of going through. She's like, no, I don't know them. No, I don't know them. No, I don't know them. And then she hears a name, and she was like, I just saw him at the conference last week. And he had been on one of the planes that crashed, and he didn't make it, obviously. And she was like talking about how there was nothing separating her between her and the sky when she started to fly. And she's like, and then somebody turned the thing I love most in this world into a bomb. And she was just like heartbroken, and it was coming through because she was like, you could see that she felt responsible, like as a pilot. And it was heartbreaking because it's like, you have nothing to feel responsible about. Like, you did not do this, you know? And so the musical goes on, and people are really starting to like love each other, and they're starting to overcome their differences, and they're starting to just like really appreciate each other. And then eventually the FAA opens up the airspace, and they're ready to go home. And so they say goodbye, and the pilot is, I'm sorry I keep using their characters, like I cannot remember their names to save my life. I wish I had my playbill still, but I don't know where I put it. But she was like talking about how she's flying, and she says, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the United States of America, as they cross the border from Canada. And then the cheers just erupt on stage and in the audience too, because we were all so engrossed in the story.
Everybody in the audience just like, yeah, America!
Like, literally, we're all cheering. Every single one of us, like there was USA. These colors don't run. There was a really lovely elderly couple sitting next to me, and he was just blubbering, like he was just crying his eyeballs out. And I was like, I feel you, sir. I understand. And like there was a couple women in front of us that were having like a girls' night, and they're crying, and they're like wiping their faces, and they're clapping, and my dad next to me is crying, which made me cry harder because like I've seen my dad cry 3 times in my whole life. And so, and then she was like, and then she keeps singing, and then all of a sudden she says, ladies and gentlemen, if you look out your window, you'll see the town where I grew up. It's basically her saying, welcome back to Dallas National Airport. And it was just, the whole thing was so incredible. And all the plane people were like, because that's what they call them, the plane people, or the come from a ways. There was one guy that was like, and this like fucking got me, because there was one guy who was from New York, and he went back to New York, and he's like, my dad keeps asking me how I'm doing, and he was like, how do I possibly explain to him that I felt safer and I felt better in Canada? Like, I don't feel safe here anymore. Like I'm scared. I don't want to go outside.
Oh, I get that.
And he's like, how do I tell him that not only was I fine, but I was great? Like, I was better than okay. And then you cut to the lady who was looking for her son, who was a fighter. And now I'm going to cry, because this play, once it's done touring, I think it's going to be on YouTube, and I think we should watch it. Or this musical. But so this woman was like, I'm going to find my son. Well, she goes to the fire station and then finds out that he died. He got trapped trying to rescue somebody and got them out, but he couldn't get out himself then. And so she calls her friend back in Newfoundland, and she was like, he didn't make it. And they just sat down and like cried together on the phone. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, what do you need? What can I do? And then the lady who whose son was supposed to be on the plane, she ends up finding out that he actually missed his flight and got on a different one and made it to his destination, and he was home and safe and sound and perfect. And she was like, I've never been so happy to hear that you overslept. Like, it was just, like, he missed his flight and he had to get on a different one, and he ended up saving his life. And then the guy from Europe, they were like, yeah, we called a couple times and we tried to make long distance work, but we couldn't. And then he comes around the corner and he goes, so I moved to Nashville. Like, it was just, he was like, so we're gonna make it work, and I live here now. And then they're talking about how 10 years later, all of the come from aways went back to Newfoundland, and like they talked to all the people that they met there, and you know, they were like, thank you for everything, and we couldn't have, like, we would not have survived this without you, and thank you for your hospitality, and like blah blah blah. And now they make it like a yearly thing, like people fly back there, and the couple, the English guy and the other girl, they're like, yeah, we got married and we actually honeymooned in Newfoundland. And I was like, that's really fucking sweet. And then before they left, I forgot this part, but before they left, the kid from New York, that was the one that was like, how do I tell my dad that I was more than okay, like that I felt safe and that I was taken care of or whatever. When he got on the plane to go back home, and he stood up and he was like, hi everybody, like, I know this has been a really traumatic whatever, and he was like, but I want to put together a hat, like I want to give the people of Newfoundland something. So everybody put some money in this hat, and they ended up raising like quite a substantial amount of money, and they sent it back to the Newfoundlanders, because they were like, the resources you had to have gone through just to house us all here.
Yeah,
I mean, it was quite literally almost triple their population. And then the Newfoundlanders were talking about how after the plane people all left, they were like, suddenly the town didn't feel so big and everything was quiet. And it was just like, they were like, we never grieved either, because we were so worried about making sure these people were taken care of. And then at the end of the play, and this is what made me bawl like a fucking baby. Like, I ugly cried when this happened, because then again I looked it up and it's true. But they said that Newfoundland is the only place outside of America that has a steel bar from the South Tower. Because the New York officials, I don't know the specifics behind it, but they sent part of, and maybe it wasn't the South Tower, maybe it was the North, but it was one of the two towers. They sent a steel bar, or like they sent a piece of the tower over there as to say, like, thank you for taking care of us, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, these people were just as affected, if not more, as we all were. And it was just like the whole story. I am a sucker for stories about people, like complete strangers, coming together and being like, okay, we have to set our differences aside and we have to get this done, because we are not going to survive otherwise. And the fact that especially the Newfoundlander, the Newfies, they were so quick to be like, okay, let's open the Lions Club, let's open the Salvation Army, let's dust out our Salvation Army uniforms, let's make sure we have food and water and bread and toilet paper, and like, let's get it done, because these people are going to be here any minute. And not a single ounce of, well, it's not our problem, like, it's not our fault, or whatever. They were just like, okay, we're gonna have 38 planes, we're gonna have about 9,000 to 10,000 people, we better fucking figure it out real quick here. And during this time, and I don't know the specifics about this, I'm guessing it was probably pretty historically accurate, but during this time there was a school bus driver strike, and the mayor and the lead school bus driver, the guy for the union, they were just not coming to an agreement. And then they found out that they were gonna have 38 planes, and the school bus driver was like, how many buses do you need? Where do you need us to go? Like, immediately put aside their differences for complete strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And I seriously, anybody listening, I strongly recommend you watch this musical, because it was phenomenal. And
I was going to add to your point about the, like, when they all gasped when they saw, the plane hit the towers. I just, like, I can't imagine being an adult during that time and seeing that happen, because we were both children when this happened.
Well, and I said that to my dad.
We were both not even old enough to comprehend what happened.
I was in second grade.
Were you in second grade? I feel like I was in second grade.
Oh, 2001. No, I was in first grade.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had to be in second grade then, but yeah, that's like what 6 years old at that point.
But I just remember I was talking to my dad.
Oh no, 2001. So 93, 94, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1.
Yeah,
so I was 8 years old.
So I was probably 6.
So I was probably a little old to kind of know what was going on, but still, 8 years old is not old enough to comprehend something like that.
I found this on the web.
I wasn't talking
Nobody
to you,
asked
Siri.
you, Siri. And I was talking to my dad too, and I was like, I remember 9/11 happening. I remember it very well. I can tell you exactly what I was doing. We had an announcement come on over the intercom, and the principal was like, teachers, please check your emails or turn to this channel or whatever. My teacher turned the TV on, saw what was happening, turned the TV off, and went to her computer. She was like, I'm not subjecting my kids to this or whatever. And then I remember at 6 years old thinking, well, that's kind of weird, but okay. And then I remember getting home later that afternoon, and my mom was watching the news coverage, and she was standing in the living room, mouth agape. I mean, she was crying. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she had her hand over her mouth, and she was on the phone. I don't remember who with, but she was on the phone, and she was like, yeah, I'm watching it right now. And because she was watching the replay or whatever, because obviously it happened in the morning and this was later in the afternoon. And I just remember thinking, oh, mom's watching the same movie my teacher turned on earlier. Like, it never even occurred to me that it was real life.
Yeah, until you later be like, wait a minute, that ain't no movie. And
I was telling my dad, I was like, I can't even imagine having to process that as an adult.
Right.
Because my immediate thought would have, as an adult, if something like that happened, my immediate thought is, do I know anybody that was flying today?
Well, yeah, yeah. And
then to hear stories about, like, one of my favorite stories, and I use the term favorite loosely, but one of the most impactful stories I've heard of 9/11 is this girl and her dad, and he was running late for a flight, or he was running late for a business meeting, and she overslept and missed the bus, and he had to take her to school, and he was running late, and he was super stressed out, and they were arguing and fighting and blah 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 blah. Well, then come to find out later, he was supposed to be in one of the towers and didn't make it to work because he had to take his kid to school, effectively saving his life. And she's like, I think about that every day. Like, what if I had gotten up on time? Like, my whole life could have been different.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
And I was like, that's fucking insane, dude. Like, how do you live with that? Like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I simply could not even imagine.
So basically what I'm gathering from your whole thing is people should check out Come From Away.
Absolutely. If you get an opportunity to see it, whether it's online somewhere or in person, I strongly recommend it. If you want to, you can listen to it. Like, the whole musical is on, I don't know if it's on Spotify. I have it on Apple Music, but it's
more than likely
so
on
good.
Spotify.
It's so good. Seeing it in person and then listening to the musical on my phone, I was like, oh, okay, well, I see they cut out this part here, they cut out like this minor interaction here, which is fine. I mean, you still get the gist of it.
There's definitely gonna be differences between like actually seeing the show and like a studio recording.
Well, yeah, because, you know, on the studio recording, like, obviously they skip over the talking parts because there are some speaking lines in Come From Away. But yeah, I mean, I laughed, I cried, like, the one point, this cop at the beginning, he was like, oh yeah, I pulled over such and such, and, you know, gave him a ticket for speeding, and on it I wrote STFD, slow the fuck down, but he says it in the most, like, heavy, like, Canadian meets. So Newfoundlanders, I'm pretty convinced, are just like Minnesotan plus people.
Minnesotans that got lost.
Yeah, because the way they spoke, I was like,
Minnesotans that were like, oh, we're gonna go up north for the weekend, and just got lost.
Just got lost on the way, because he was like, the way he said, slow the fuck down. I was like, all right, I didn't need to be called out like that.
Hey there, bud, you're going a little too fast there, bud.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I'm not unconvinced that Minnesota is just Canada Light, but
like Canada's Budweiser and Minnesota's Bud Light.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the gist. And then sometimes in the summer we're Bud Light Lime because we're feeling a little extra spicy. But yeah, I strongly recommend Come From Away. It's one of the three musicals that I will put my life on that you should see at some point in your life.
Would you qualify it as underrated or just something that probably not a lot of people know of?
I don't think a lot of people know a lot about it. From what I understand, it's a fairly new show.
Because I suppose underrated would be shows that are like bigger, but not many people are talking about.
Yeah, but no, it was a good show.
Seems like one of those shows that is smaller and needs, more attention.
Well, because when my dad asked me if I want, or he said something about going to Come From Away, and my mom just had no interest in going. She was like, I don't want to see a musical about 9/11, and I was like, I'll go. Like, I'll take any opportunity to go to the theater. And I didn't know what it was going to be about. So I went into it having no clue what I was about to experience. And I think, honestly, that's the best way to go about it, is if you go into it and you're not totally sure what to think or what it's going to be about. Because oh my God, it was so good. I would watch it 1,000 times over.
Interesting. Well, yeah.
So that was Come From Away. Definitely check it out. I think it might be on Amazon Prime. I'm not totally sure though.
Is there any other kind of underrated musicals you want to talk about? Any more McDonald's bags you want to crinkle around?
You're just a hater.
I'm not a hater. It's called sound design.
No, but I do stand by my earlier statement that if you get the opportunity to watch Come From Away, you really should.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode then. Hopefully you guys got a lot of good recommendations out there for musicals. But with that, I think that's going to be the end of this episode. But yeah, that'll be that episode. That'll be this episode. There's a squirrel on my patio.
And the cats are doing nothing. Do your jobs.
Literally, they're both looking the opposite direction.
Just unbothered.
But anyways... drink your water, do positive things out there. New episodes every Saturday, link in the description, all social medias and whatnot. Usually I say that at the beginning, but if you've actually been listening, you should know that by now. I've been Cameron.
I've been Kait.
And as always, we'll see you in the next episode. Nerd out.